Hey team, happy Friday. Here for another First Chapter Friday. The one I picked for you today is pretty strategic because if you didn't know, February is Black History Month. So I chose a book that I thought would teach you a little bit about Black history in our country and the civil rights movement that happened in the 60s. So again, I'm picking another historical fiction book. This book has won many, many awards. It was actually written a long time ago. It was like when I was in grade school, but it is a fantastic story, 1995. But this is a story called The Watsons Go to Birmingham, and it is by a famous author who's written 3 or 4 other books that are also in our library called Christopher Paul Curtis. He wrote Bud Not Buddy. He wrote The Marvelous Miss Malone, some other ones that we have in the library. So if you like this one, we have several others. I'm only going to read the inside, but then I'm going to reflect a little bit more with you on the history of this book and why I think it's so important that you read it. Okay, so The Watsons Go to Birmingham. Notice you have 2 different awards here. This is the Newbery Honor Book. So one year it was honored as one of the best books of the entire year from all of the books that were produced that year, as being one of the top 5 chapter books for young kids. It also received the Coretta Scott King Award. This is a book for peace, nonviolent social change, and brotherhood. It is typically given to books that represent Black history or represent some type of diversity. And it received both of these awards as well as several others. So this is one way to recognize a good book when you see it. So here's a little bit about the inside. The Watsons Go to Birmingham. Enter the hilarious world of 10-year-old Kenny and his family, the Weird Watsons of Flint, Michigan. There's Mama, Dad, little sister Joetta, Kenny, and Byron, who's 13 and an official juvenile delinquent. When Mama and Dad decide it's time for a visit to Grandma, Dad comes home with the amazing Ultra Glide, and the Watsons set out on a trip like no other. They are heading south. They're heading to Birmingham, Alabama, toward one of the darkest moments in America's history. By turns comic, tragic, and touching, this remarkable first novel introduces Christopher Paul Curtis, a writer of bold ambition and true and original voice. So essentially in this story, this is kind of like it's a really funny family. Like the dialogue and listening to them talk in the beginning of the book, you're gonna find it funny. Like it's really, it's a family that you can totally relate to, and they're living up north, so in Michigan. And the main character, his name is Kenny. Kenny and Byron, one of them is kind of like a troublemaker, and so they decide to go see Grandma's. They all get into the car together, this brand new car that they got, and they travel south, pretty far south, to Birmingham, Alabama. During this time in history, it is a time in our history called segregation. And during that time, Black people and white people typically did not mingle at, like pools were separate, schools were separate. So there was a school for Black individuals and a school for white individuals. And during this time, there was a lot of violence towards Black people. And this is unfortunately when they go to Alabama, they experience one of those things that really did happen. So this is based on a true event. These characters, Kenny, Joetta, Byron, they are not real people, but the experience, what they see when they go to Alabama, is based on true events that really do happen. It's a time in our history called the Civil Rights Movement that is really important to study and to understand and to know about. So if this is one you're interested in, if that sounds like something you need to know more about, I highly suggest coming to check this one out. If it's already checked out or this specific one is not something you're into, please come ask me, and I have several more by this author. There are also several other ones about this time period that I would love to share with you, especially right now during Black History Month. So I hope you have a great Friday. I hope you come talk to me about this book, and I'll see you guys later.